perhaps some sleet or snow to immediate southern counties, but for most of us it is actually going to stay largely dry. Plenty of winter sunshine on offer tomorrow, but there will be some snow showers feeding down on a brisk northerly wind, mainly affecting northern Scotland. Despite the sunshine though, it is going to feel cold, temperatures generally only getting a few degrees above freezing. More fine sunny weather to come as we go through Thursday, but we stick with that brisk northerly wind, so more snow showers across northern parts of Scotland, perhaps Northern Ireland and some western and eastern coastal parts could see some wintry showers for a time. Most inland areas though staying dry and fine, with more fine weather to come as we go through Friday, but turning wet, windier and milder by the weekend.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
This is Patrick Christys Tonight. They promised they'd rebel, now they've resigned.
I won't be in a position to vote for something which I don't believe in. Look, you know, at the end of the day, small votes are coming, they'll keep coming.
Lee and his fellow Deputy Chairman Brendan Clark-Smith are among 3 rebels to sensationally quit government over Rishi's wishy-washy Rwanda bill. Leader of the New Conservative Miriam Cates reacts live. That's next. Plus, will the PM regret ditching his Red Wall Rottweiler while cozying up to Lord Cameron? Edwina Currie and Dame Andrea Jenkins, they go head-to-head. And Reform UK leader Richard Tice wasted no time in telling Lee to defect. This is how he responded.
The Conservative Party is the best party moving forward to get us out of this mess. So, very kind of Richard.
Well, Tice tells Lee why he should roll the dice, live at 10. Also tonight, Oh, yes. Remember this footballing legend? The family of World Cup winner Nobby Stiles are suing the FA. His son, John, joins me to explain why. And after far-left Labour MP Zara Sultana accused the PM of Islamophobia just for saying this.
Perhaps the Honourable Lady would do well to call on Hamas and the Houthis to de-escalate the situation.
What's wrong with that? Does Starmer need to come down hard on the extreme wings of his party? And are Labour now at the mercy of the Muslim vote? My panel is ready and raring to go. And here they are. Tonight I am joined by Suzanne Evans, Ranald Giles-Wardner and Rebecca Reid. Are you ready, Britain? Here we go. We have got so much going on tonight, OK? Richie has now lost his Red Wall Rottweiler in Lee Anderson. Will he live to regret that? How on earth are these Rwanda rebels actually going to vote tomorrow? We get stuck into that with new Conservative rebel Miriam Cates right after the news with Polly.
Patrick, thank you, and good evening to you. Well, as you've been hearing, parliamentary amendments tabled to strengthen the government's Rwanda bill were both defeated in the House of Commons tonight. Our political editor, Christopher Hope, explains.
A difficult night then for the PM, Rishi Sunak, and his Rwanda plan, with 60 Tory MPs, 2 independents and 8 DUP MPs voting for amendments to try and strengthen his plan. They weren't impressed by the remarks from the Prime Minister to GBNews on Monday, making clear he would overrule European judges which try and frustrate the will of the UK government in sending illegally arrived migrants who arrive here by boat back to Rwanda. There's been some casualties too. We've seen the resignations of both Lee Anderson and Brendan Clark-Smith, 2 deputy chairmen of the Tory party, and later tonight, the resignation of Jane Stevenson, a parliamentary private secretary to Kevin Badenoch. So, food for thought overnight for government whips and for Mr Sunak and his team as we go into a key day tomorrow when more amendments are voted on, but crucially, if the bill remains unamended, there'll be a third reading tomorrow night, and that vote could be lost unless whips and the PM, maybe himself personally, can persuade some of those 60 or so Tory MPs not to vote the bill down on Wednesday night.
Well, Lee Anderson spoke to GB News tonight and said the Rwanda bill could still work.
I won't be in a position to vote for something which I don't believe in. Look, you know, at the end of the day, small boats are coming, they'll keep coming. I want to see a situation where anybody who arrives illegally in this country has no right at all to claim asylum, no right to claim an appeal, and more importantly, no right to go missing and disappear into the country. And I think this bill could work, but it needs strengthening up, and that's why I back the amendments.
Well, more on that in Patrick's programme tonight. But in other news today, in the post office scandal, more specifically, a Fujitsu boss today accused the post office officials of knowing about the bugs and errors in the Horizon IT system. The Business and Trade Committee heard from key figures involved in the post office scandal, including Fujitsu executive Paul Patterson, who apologised and admitted his company had a moral obligation to contribute towards compensating victims. The wrongly accused former postmaster and leader of the Sub-Postmasters Alliance, Alan Bates, blamed red tape for delays to compensation payments. And the coldest January night in 14 years could hit the UK tonight. Temperatures in Scotland could reach as low as -15. More than 100 schools were closed in Scotland today as the Met Office issued yellow warnings for snow and ice, including for Northern England and parts of Wales. That remains in place until midnight. The Met Office has said a cold plunge of Arctic air has moved south across the whole country over the last few days, making it 5 to 6 degrees lower than usual for this time of year. Very, very cold indeed. On TV, online, DAB+ radio and the TuneIn app, this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's been a seismic and sensational day in politics. It all started, though, on this show last night, when Tory Deputy Chairman Lee Anderson and Brendan Clark-Smith told me that they'd vote for amendments to the Rwanda plan and they didn't care if they got sacked for it.
We're not bothered about roles. We just want to make this work, and that's what this is all about, Patrick.
And there's talk about, you know, being sacked and resignation and all this. The most important thing for me is not my role as a deputy chair. The most important thing for me is making sure this legislation works.
Well, then today, the government whip said that nobody on the payroll could vote against the government and get away with it. Then Lee Anderson and Brendan Clark-Smith resigned, saying that they supported Rishi Sunak, but that the Rwanda bill wasn't strong enough, which I think does mean that you don't really support him that much, but there we go. And here is it a couple of hours ago on GB News.
Can't be in a position to vote for something which I don't believe in. Look, you know, at the end of the day, small boats are coming, they'll keep coming. I want to see a situation where anybody who arrives illegally in this country has no right at all to claim asylum, no right to claim an appeal, and more importantly, no right to go missing and disappear into the country. And I think this bill could work, but it needs strengthening up, and that's why I back the amendments.
Yeah, then there was a vote that sought to ensure international law couldn't stop people being sent to Rwanda. That vote lost. Then there was a vote to decide whether or not Rwanda is classed as a safe country. That won. Stevie Wonder can see that this is a problem, OK? We class Rwanda as safe, the international courts say it isn't, and we are back to square one. Robert Jenrick, the former immigration minister, was on this show last night. He said this.
Well, I'm certainly going to support the amendments. They're in my name and those of Bill Cash, and there's now 60 Conservative MPs backing them. I hope the government will move and produce amendments that create a bill that will actually work. If they won't, then I've been clear that I'm not going to support the bill, and I'll actively consider voting against it, because all that matters is what works, and I'm not going to support a bill that doesn't work.
Today's amendment, which was designed to stop individual asylum seekers constantly appealing their removal to Rwanda, was voted down. Kemi Badenoch, widely tipped to be the next Tory leader, saw her PPS, Jane Stevenson, resign. But it's tomorrow's crucial vote that will dictate Rishi Sunak's future, and really, in my view, this country's future when it comes to illegal immigration. And here to reveal what's actually going on with the Rwanda rebels is Miriam Case, a very prominent member of the so-called Five Families. Miriam, thank you very, very much. Look, first things first, how are you going to vote tomorrow, then?
Well, there are more amendments to come tomorrow, so I will be voting again in favour of the amendments in the name of Rob Jenrick. So those are further amendments to strengthen up this Rwanda bill. But in terms of third reading, which probably will come at the end of tomorrow, but that's not guaranteed, you know, I feel like I can't support the bill unamended because I don't think it will work. Exactly what Lee said earlier, and you just played a clip of Robert. But 24 hours is a long time in politics. We've got another day of debates to come, more amendments. And I'm very much hoping that the government does come to some accommodation around our amendments, or perhaps to produce their own, because at the end of the day, we are on the same page. We want the bill to work. The reason that we want the bill to work is because we want an effective deterrent to stop people trafficking migrants across the world. We're only going to get that deterrent if it's not tied up in the courts. That's what these amendments are all about.
I get it, right? But if these amendments are being voted down, which so far they are, right, you obviously don't think this version of the Rwanda bill is good enough. You obviously don't think you can win the next election if you don't sort out illegal immigration, which, as it stands, you don't think this bill will do. I mean, you have to vote against it tomorrow and not abstain, surely, don't you, if none of these amendments go through to it?
Well, as I said, I am prepared to vote against. I've said that consistently throughout the day, so have a number of others. But in a way, at the moment, it is just speculation, because we've got 70 MPs now have voted for the Cash Amendment. That's a big number of MPs. We've negotiated with the government in good faith. We've put forward amendments that do have respectable legal arguments. So I very much hope now that, having seen the strength of those numbers, the Prime Minister will very much take this seriously. So tomorrow is a new day. We're very much hoping for those concessions, and we'll see what the bill looks like at the end of the day.
Look, Rishi Sunak could have avoided all of this if he'd just listened to you. And by the way, the things that you're putting across, I am convinced that the vast majority of the British public want as well, right? But do you actually have confidence in Rishi Sunak?
I have full confidence that he absolutely wants to stop the boats. I mean, he could not have said that more times. He stood in front of a number of podiums that say, stop the boats. We agree with that. And the reason is because our constituents are very concerned about the number of people coming here illegally, the security threat that poses, the threat of crime, all those other things, which are absolutely real concerns for ordinary people. And he understands that. But we do have this split, not just in the party, but in Parliament, about about whether or not international law should take precedent over our own UK Parliament sovereign law. And essentially that's what's at the root of this. And if anybody listened to the debate in Parliament today, it was 5 hours long, but essentially there are two positions. There is the position that says the interpretation of international conventions by a range of judges is more important, or what the British people want is more important, and that is your division. And sadly, our party is split on that, and so the Prime Minister is in a very difficult position.
OK, all right, look, Miriam, thank you very much. We're going to leave it there, and hopefully maybe we can chat again tomorrow, or however, we'll see how it goes. Good luck with everything. You know, like you said, 24 hours is a long time in politics. Miriam Case there. Look, let's get the thoughts of my panel now. We've got political commentator Suzanne Evans. We've got former Environment Secretary Ranald Jayawardena MP and author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Look, Ranald, I will start with you on this now. How did you vote today? What went on for you today?
So I didn't vote on these amendments. I wasn't going to oppose my friends who are trying to do things that they think are helpful to the bill, and certainly I have sympathy with some of the arguments they make. I think they're trying to do the right thing, potentially, but in the wrong way, and that's just my view on it. And, you know, I think the big difference between... A lot of people try to compare this to the Brexit wars under Theresa May. The big difference between then and now is this is an iterative process that certainly moves it in the right direction, even if some people would like it to go further, whereas Theresa May's deal was locking us out of a proper Brexit
The big fundamental thing, right, is that unless Rishi Sunak is prepared to ignore the legal advice from within his government over Strasbourg judges... then this isn't going to work.
You're spot on, and I think.
But he's not prepared to do that.
But I think that's
and he won't do it.
I think that's what's really interesting about tomorrow's amendments. So you heard Miriam there just talk about this. There's something called Rule 39, which is where the judges can, at the last minute, stop a flight from taking off. And I'm hearing that the government's going to be very clear on that particular set of amendments, changing the Civil Service Code, potentially really toughening up the rules that make it possible for the government to ignore these foreign judges. So I think a lot of us are going to be looking very carefully at that. And then, of course, the third reading, which is the big vote tomorrow.
Yeah, OK, and very lastly, how are you going to vote tomorrow, then?
So my view is I'll support this because I think this is at least a step in the right direction to get the flights taking off to Rwanda. OK, all right, Rebecca, I'll come to you on this now. I mean, we've seen today Lee Anderson go, Brendan Clark-Smith go, the right wing of the Tory party, you know, Marc-Francois Leone, the leader of the Five Families, marched them up the hill last time and then back down the hill. It is all starting to look a little bit like all mouth and no trousers from the right wing of the Tory party, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I'd like to say how nice it is to see a woman who says that women should be at home out at work at 9:10 on a weeknight, who has school-aged children at home. Interesting value system there. But going back to your actual question, I feel like if I was in any way involved in the Tory party, I would be so cross and I would just want to get everybody in a room and bang all their heads together because they're just not playing nicely. There is no teamwork here. There's no shared vision. And it's like they want to lose the election. And without wanting to sound a bit conspiracy theory-y, it does seem like some members on the right of the party almost want things to end as badly as possible so that it's sort of raised to the ground and they have to start again from the beginning, having lost the election.
OK. Suzanne, your views on what we've seen today, which is, you know, quite a seismic shift, really. Lee Anderson, Brendan Clark-Smith going, these amendments, the Bill Cash amendment and the Robert Jenrick amendment, losing today. And we're going to end up in a situation, are we not, tomorrow, where a load of MPs are being asked to vote on the same Rwanda bill, essentially, that Rishi Sunak wanted to put forward before. It just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense, and I think people will be watching this at home and thinking, what the heck's going on? On the one hand, you've got Lee Anderson, you've got Jane Stevenson, you've got Brendan Clark-Smith resigning, but they're all saying they're backing their leader, the same as Miriam Cates just then. Yes, absolutely, I'm voting against this, but of course I back Rishi Sunak. And there's this complete disconnect between, well, do you back your leader or don't you? How much gumption have you actually got to stand up for your principles? Or are you just going to keep in the fold and just not cause any waves? This has been going on for so long now, this Rwanda issue, and we're getting absolutely nowhere. And I've got some sympathy with what Rebecca says here. You know, it's going on so long, it almost feels like some kind of conspiracy to just keep it going, not do anything, and then make stop the votes a great big election issue. Whereas, as Ranald said, these amendments that you're now being asked to vote on tomorrow suddenly come out of thin air, from nowhere. This could have been done months ago. It does feel to me as though it's a cynical attempt.
OK, if it loses tomorrow, if the Rwanda bill gets voted down tomorrow, do you have to have a snap election, Ronald?
I think there's a distinct possibility of that. I think Brenda from Bristol will be on.
Another one.
I have a social life, Ronald. I can't.
I think there's a distinct possibility of that. This is such an important issue for Rishi Sunak, as everyone's actually said, including Miriam today. It's such an important issue for him, and so he may well feel that the only thing to do at that point is go to the country. But I do think the government can get this through tomorrow, because I think that even folks who have great sympathy with the amendments, even folks who voted for the amendments, will accept, on balance, and I hope they will, that something is better than nothing in this, and to really try and continue to push the lefty lawyers and the judges to get the
biggest loser in all of this then is the British public, isn't it? Because you end up with a situation where we know, or the theory is that this Rwanda bill won't work and it won't sort out illegal immigration and it won't actually sort out the small boats crossing.
But that's a theory. That's a theory.
Well, it's not really a theory.
Definitely
but it's not. I talked to Robert Jenrick yesterday and I've spoken to quite a few people behind the scenes, and they just don't think Rishi Sunak's got the bottle to deal with European costs.
Whether it will or not, and I hate defending Rishi Sunak, but whether this will or not, you know what definitely won't, is wasting the rest of until summer having an election, and then Parliament's in recess for summer, and then it's Christmas again.
By which
it's
time
ridiculous.
several thousand more votes come across.
It's the threat, isn't it, of we either have this version of the Rwanda plan or we have a Labour government, which is nothing, isn't it? And that's why
we don't know it would be nothing. There are plenty of loads of Labour voters who are very hard on immigration.
The Labour Party in Parliament are very clear they want an open
if they want the red wall,
you know what sums it up for me about the weakness in this country now, about not wanting to actually stand up to our European friends? The EU could stop this crisis tomorrow.
Why would they? What have we ever done for them?
So I'll come off it. What have we ever done for them? We pumped a load of money into the European Union.
We're idiots. We keep throwing money at them.
No, I'm sorry, it's ridiculous. The EU could stop the small boat crisis tomorrow if they made sure that the motors, the small boat motors, and the actual small boats themselves were confiscated at every single point during the European Union. They are exacerbating. Why aren't we going to war with the EU over this? Not literally, but
the boat thing doesn't really work because you change this specific type of boat can't be sold. We just get a new boat. That doesn't work. Why on earth would the EU want to help us? Why would they like?
Oh, come on. OK, so there you go. So you admit that the European Union are a bunch of absolute a-holes, and we were right to leave.
No, I don't agree.
Oh, there you go. So you think the European Union wouldn't just want to do the right thing for common decency?
No.
Oh.
I don't think they like. I didn't vote in Brexit. I don't care about Brexit.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I feel very strongly that why would they like us? We have been fairly unfriendly to them. Why would they help us?
We've not been absolutely.
We just keep throwing money at them for nothing. We're idiots. They're laughing at us because we deserve to be laughed at.
Still to come. I warn Keir Starmer to get a hold of renegade MPs like Zahra Sultana ahead of this year's general election. How vulnerable is the Labour Party to independent Muslim candidates standing at the next election? Up next, the Prime Minister has lost his Red Wall Rottweiler, and it could have grave consequences. I want to know, was Rishi Sunak wrong to force Lee Anderson's resignation? Tory rebel Dame Andrea Jenkins goes head-to-head with party grandee Edwina Currie. This is Patrick Christys Now. We are only on GB News.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
This is Patrick Christys Tonight. It's only on GB News, and it is time now for tonight's head-to-head on a dramatic night in Westminster. Look, it's chaos in Parliament again this evening as Tory Deputy Chairs Lee Anderson and Brendan Clark-Smith both sensationally resign after backing the rebel amendments to the Rwanda bill. It's surely not a good look for Rishi Sunak as the general election looms large, and his choice to let loyal MPs walk while he continues cozying up to Chief Tory wet of yesteryear, David Cameron. I mean, just have a look at that picture. It's caption competition time, everybody, OK? Look at that picture. The posh boys are back in power, aren't they? The posh Southerners. And meanwhile, you've got your working-class red wall Rottweilers like Lee Anderson. They're being ousted, OK? Are people now feeling betrayed? Has he just signed off completely on the red wall? Tonight I am asking, was Rishi Sunak wrong to force Lee Anderson's resignation? Let me know your thoughts. Email me gbviews@gbnews.com. Tweet me at gbnews. While you're there, go and vote in our poll. I'll bring you those results in a few short minutes. But first, going hammer and tongs at this now, is former Education Minister Dame Andrea Jenkins and Tory grandee and former Minister Edwina Currie. Dame Andrea, I'll start with you. Was Rishi Sunak wrong to force Lee Anderson and Brendan's resignation?
I wouldn't say it was wrong I mean, I used to be a whip, and I've been a minister, and even when you're a deputy chairman of the party, you adhere to the ministerial code. And it's well known that if you sign a government amendment or vote against a government, you need to resign. Now, on the other hand, I mean, I was the first one to resign under Theresa May with her appalling Brexit deals. And so it's right that you resign. But I think that I take my hat off to Brendan and Lee. You know, they're both great guys, and they've resigned on conviction. So I think they've done the right thing. But the real problem for me, Patrick, is the fact that it's been watered down so much, the Rwanda bill, so much so that, you know, Robert Jenrick, the immigration minister, had to resign. He put the amendments in himself, which you know, I was one of the signatories on the amendments. And it's because he's watered it down. So it's had this knock-on effect where they've had to resign.
OK, all right. Edwina, do you think they were right to resign and to vote for these amendments then? What do you think?
Well, let me just say, I love you calling me a grandee, but I've never been anywhere near the honours list. Unlike the great dame that I'm sharing tonight with. So I feel deeply honoured. I think this is more a matter of exasperation than anything else. I read Lee Anderson's letter. I thought it was a very, very good letter, very measured, very supportive of the Prime Minister's efforts, and really just differing very slightly towards the end about whether the bill is going to be strong enough or not. And actually, nobody knows. Goes through and it's actually tested, and it will be tested. I have no doubt about that. Whether it's going to be effective deterrent, personally, I don't think so. And do I think we're actually going to get anyone going to Rwanda before the general election? Not a chance. But I don't honestly think this is a huge disaster for the Prime Minister. He ended up with big majorities tonight, and I think he'll get the bill through on third reading in the Commons tomorrow. What will happen in the House of Lords is a different question entirely.
Oh, great.
I mean, I think, Patrick, actually, that, I mean, Edwina, you know, I respect you as a politician, but you clearly see history repeating itself here. I mean, if we look back when you was in from the 92 to 97 Parliament, you know, disaster was coming down the track. But due to misguided loyalty to John Major, you know, with respect, people like yourself and other MPs during the time, misguided loyalty, they could have got rid of John Major in 95, and look, you lost your seat. Many other Conservatives lost their seat in 97, and I feel we're heading towards that at the moment. And so I think that it's right that we see these resignations, and I agree with you. You know, flights are not going to go off to Rwanda with this appalling policy. We're letting down the British public, and I'd like to see more resignations and a new leader, one who's, you know, got the strength and the gumption to see this through. And, you know, actually do what Suella wanted, do what also what Robert Jenrick wanted, and then deliver for the people, because with this policy, we are not delivering for the British public.
So Edwina, what Andrea is saying there is, you know, more resignations, change of leader. With respect, Edwina, what you have just said is what everyone can see, which is, for all of the talk, this bill probably isn't going to work. It's probably not going to be a deterrent. We're probably not going to end up with sending anyone to Rwanda anyway. I mean, do you not agree with me? What's the point? What's the point of all of this now, unless you just rip it up and start again? I mean, it's no... You just back... You know, we'll back Rishi Sunak so that we don't get a snap election in a Labour government. I mean, nothing... We've had all this fanfare and resignation and everything for absolutely naff all.
Well, if we weren't doing the Rwanda bill, I agree. I think we could concentrate on other issues that are very significant indeed to the welfare and the prosperity of the British people. That would be my preference. It's one of the reasons why I think Rwanda is an absolute herring. But let me just remind Andrea, with the greatest possible respect, you put in for and you wanted a change of leader. Let me see, Theresa May. So, you know, then we got Boris. And then we got Liz Truss, and then we got Rishi Sunak. Do you know what? A leader of a party, and particularly of a government, is only as good as the people behind him who support him or her. And if he's got a lot of flaky people behind him, then his position is bound to be weakened. I would say, Andrea, stick with what you've got, because I tell you what, could be actually much worse.
Can I ask, did you actually say that during Boris's time?
Like chaos. Like what you're
did you say that during Boris's time and Liz Truss's time, or is it because we've got a wet in charge now? Did you say that during Liz Truss and Boris's time? Because I thought we should have backed them. They was backed by the members, and Boris was democratically
Andrea, finish, and then...
Don't understand how government works. And you have to back the government.
Edwina, simple question. Did you say the same thing, that we should have got behind Boris or Liz? Boris was democratically elected. Did you say the same thing?
Oh yes, particularly on Boris. My goodness, over and over and over again. If we have a prime minister, and we have prime ministers with many different and very good qualities, almost immediately demanding that they got rid of is really, with greatest possible respect.
Look at the polling. It's the worst we've had. It's not cutting through. You know, we will let the socialists in if we don't get a new leader, Edwina. It's last chance saloon now. Get a strong leader, a true conservative leader who will stand up to the European Court of Human Rights, who will deliver for the British public, and let's get this show on the road, because it's stalled at the moment.
Well, with all due respect, the polls are suggesting that many things are already decided in the voters' minds and many things are not. But having another leadership contest is the last thing any of us need. You and I should be actually singing from the same page, Andrew. We should be saying, look, let's back the Prime Minister, let's get the good stuff done, and then we can go to the electorate saying we've managed to achieve all this. We need some more time. Let's have the time.
The previous two Prime Ministers.
All right, Andrea, who would you look? Who would you have? We talk about get a proper Conservative in all of this. So, who is it, though, Andrea? Go on.
I mean, for me, it'd have to be someone from the right. So, I mean, I think the right need to unite behind one candidate. That is going to be the problem. Otherwise, we're going to get two left-wingers on the ballot for members. So, I mean, either the likes of Pretty, Suella or Jacob. One of them I will be happy with. But they need to
back all of you. All the people on the right, you're all like ferrets in a sack. That's what happens when people on the fringes
To be fair, Edwina, I do put it to you, right, that at the moment, the reason why Rishi Sunak is in a world of trouble is because he's not actually listening to what the vast majority of the British public want. 9 out of 10 constituencies want lower net migration. Overwhelmingly, people want people deported if they enter this country illegally. And Rishi Sunak is too keen on listening to people like Damien Green instead of actually doing what it takes. And I do put it to you, Edwina, actually. I'll just come out and say this. Rishi Sunak, from my view, is far too concerned about what his legacy on the dinner circuit is going to be. He's got his legacy now. It's banning smoking for people under a certain age forever, and it's more A-levels. So it's education and it's health. That's great. Actually, what this country needs is a bloke who's going to man up and sort it out. And he's not got the minerals, has he, Edwina?
Well, personally, I think that stopping people smoking and having better...
Yeah, fine. Illegal immigration is more of a problem, Edwina, though, isn't it?
But to the British public, you actually said legal immigration as well, net immigration. Yeah. And that's what the government has allowed to get out of control and needs to be brought back in control. And if it means that some of these cod universities have to close because they're no longer getting lots of people in from India or China or wherever, that's fine, because they're not actually serving in this country. That's more important. A year ago, the Prime Minister made 5 pledges. The only one that I went, what? Was about stopping the boats, with me thinking, actually, if immigration is the issue...
He could do it. He could do it. He's just not prepared to do it.
And we know how to stop the boats. We stop them.
And we'll do it.
Legal
all right, we are running over. We are running over, which is mostly my fault because I got carried away there. But thank you very, very much, both of you. I thoroughly enjoyed that. I stay Andrea Jenkins there, former Conservative Minister as well, Edwina Curry. Thank you very, very much. So who do you agree with? Was Rishi Sunak wrong to force Red Wall MPs Lee Anderson and Brendan Clark-Smith resignations? Mick on X says, this is the final nail in the coffin for Sunak's government, as far as I'm concerned. I don't blame Lee and Brendan for a second. Cranford says, awful leadership from Sunak. Grief. If our Prime Minister can't even listen to his own MPs, what hope do we have of him listening to the British people? Richard says, Sunak didn't force them, it was a blatant career move. They know their safe seat status is gone. And if they had any integrity, they'd have left ages ago. Your verdict is 77% of you agree that Sunak was wrong to force the resignations of Lee Anderson and Brendan Clark-Smith. 23% of you say that he wasn't. Yeah, all of this could have been avoided if he'd just adopted the kind of amendments that people were putting forward. But anyway, coming up, I'm joined exclusively by the son of England World Cup winner Nobby Stiles. He was leading a lawsuit against the FA over brain injuries allegedly suffered during his dad's career. But next, this is a story that I don't think has got anything like enough attention in the British media. After far-left Labour MP Zahra Sultana accused the Prime Minister ridiculously of Islamophobia for saying this.
Perhaps the Honourable Lady would do well to call on Hamas and the Houthis to de-escalate the situation.
Right, so does Starmer need to come down hard on the extreme wings of his party? But this is the big story for me. How vulnerable are the Labour Party to independent Muslim candidates standing against their MPs at the next election? I put it out there that I think he's very, very vulnerable to it, and it could be the kind of reformed UK of the Labour Party, actually. Here my takedown of Zahra Sultana. That's next. This is Patrick Christys tonight. We are only on GB News.
Wake up to the headlines with headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Carson, this Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Patrick Christys Tonight. It's only on GB News. Now, some Labour MPs are back at it, weaponising Islamophobia as a way of trying to silence and intimidate their critics. We've seen this time and time again, especially with topics like we discussed yesterday, the grooming gang issue. People cry Islamophobia and hope that others just shut up and go away. Well, look, step forward Zara Sultana, who in 2015 reportedly wrote of her support for violent resistance by Palestinians, previously apologised for telling any pro-Israel supporters to jump off a cliff. Well, here she is in the Commons last night.
So rather than giving Israel the green light to continue its brutal bombardment of Gaza and risking a wider conflict, will the Prime Minister seek to de-escalate the situation and call for an immediate ceasefire?
Right, so then Rishi Sunak just said this.
Perhaps the Honourable Lady would do well to call on Hamas and the Houthis to de-escalate the situation.
Fine, nothing wrong with that. He's not suggesting that she's got a direct line to them or anything. Then step forward Jewish Tory MP Andrew Percy.
Too many people give a free pass to the terrorists who perpetrated the worst murder of Jews, and we've just seen an example of that.
Well, in the warped world of Zara Sultana, that was Islamophobia, apparently. She started to take offence when no offence was actually given.
implying that because I am a Muslim, I support Hamas. So with rising Islamophobia and racist tropes asking British Muslims to prove their loyalty, can I ask you for guidance on how to get a full retraction and apology from the member for Brig and Ghoul?
What? No one said that. No one was saying that at all. Ironically, Labour does have a problem, actually, when it comes to the Muslim vote to the next general election, and this is not being spoken about nearly enough in the media. The so-called Party of Islam was rejected, thankfully, by the Electoral Commission, but this doesn't stop members of the Muslim community standing on a pro-Palestine ticket against Labour MPs. And it is happening to Wes Streeting, the Shadow Health Secretary for the Ilford North constituency, which has apparently a 31.3% Muslim community when it comes to the amount of people in that constituency. The candidate is Leanne Mohammed, who is a Corbyn follower, obviously, who has a good chance of turning over Streeting's 5,000 majority. Now, vast swathes of constituencies have a massive Muslim population. One poll by Muslim Census claimed that there had been a 66% drop in the Muslim Labour vote to just 5%. That was at the end of October. Now, the Muslim vote could be to Labour what Reform UK is to the Tories. Watch this space. Let's get the thoughts now of my panel on this. Political commentator Suzanne Evans, former Environment Secretary Ranil Jayawardena MP, author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Suzanne, I don't think this is spoken about nearly enough now. The damage that it could potentially do to the Labour Party in a whole host of seats, loads of seats, if independent candidates from the Muslim community stand overtly against Labour on a pro-Palestine ticket. That could well be the kind of Reform UK, but to Labour.
It could well be, but it remains to be seen. I mean, this isn't something that we've seen in British politics before. And let's not forget that actually the Muslim community is very often divided as well. People forget that. We tend to see it as a homogenous whole. And of course there isn't. There are different factions within the Muslim community as well. So could you potentially get one candidate that satisfies them all? I don't know. It remains to be seen. But they were quite extraordinary scenes in the House of Commons that we've just seen from Zara Sultana. I mean, it's very interesting. I don't think what Rishi Sunak said to her was wrong at all. I certainly don't think it was Islamophobic. Arguably, you could say she asked for it. I've been having a look at some of the statements she's made about the Hamas-Israeli war. It's interesting, she made no statement at all on the 7th of October when Hamas committed those attacks. Absolutely nothing. Radio silence. 5 days later, she did make a statement. She said she condemned Hamas's appalling killing of civilians in Israel. She said that again in the House too, and she has also, of course, called for the release of the hostages. But on every single occasion, she's mentioned those attacks by Hamas. They have been in the context of attacks on Israel. So I think the fact that she's never once asked Hamas to lay down its arms or you know, seek peace talks, nothing like that has she ever done.
Is this just the classic thing of people crying Islamophobia?
I don't think it's that. I think it's that she's probably experienced a lot of it throughout her life and therefore is probably quite sensitive to it. And a good example is, do you remember on Good Morning Britain fairly recently, Richard Madeley asked Layla Moran, who is Muslim, did you know that the attacks were coming? Had you heard any whispers?
Who was, I think she's got relatives in
she has got relatives in Gaza, but she also doesn't know anybody in Hamas, as far as we know. So the perception that people who are Muslim or who have family in particular areas are somehow connected to or have.
But do you honestly think, seriously, that Zara Sultana took that from that, or she was deliberately farming it up?
Two things. I would say that the full statement from the MP for Brig and Ghoul is more confrontational towards her than we saw just now. It got very heated between them. I can see both sides very much. Right. So he was a bit sharper towards her, and that's why she asked for a retraction. But I think what you're seeing there is the culmination of many, many, many years of experiencing low-level and high-level Islamophobia in her life, which has made her behave a bit unreasonably. But we're seeing the tip of the iceberg, and there is definitely a root to it.
Well, what do you make of that? I mean, the idea that, you know, someone could be accused of Islamophobia, isn't it? I mean, we're seeing this we see it all the time. You know, the police didn't want to get involved with grooming gang issues because they didn't want to be accused of Islamophobia or start stoking racial tensions. You know, it happens all the time. I just wonder whether or not people now use this as a defence mechanism.
Well, I mean, I think it's a bit of a smokescreen, actually. It's a bit of a smokescreen for this hard-left Corbynista Labour Party that's still there. You know, and she and others, including Sir Keir Starmer, all try to get Corbyn elected. And the truth is that there are a load of them who still agree with the Corbyn worldview. And unfortunately for Keir Starmer, people like Zara Sultana are revealing their true colours to the country by going on these marches. She's not alone. And indeed, at these marches, you've got people who benefit from everything that this country and the liberal Western world has to offer, and they hate the West. And they chant against the West. They chant against this country. And I think for Labour MPs to be associating themselves with that is a disgrace.
Yeah, I think no MP should be going on those marches. Totally agree with Suella Braverman. They are hate marches. You see that constantly in what people say at them, the way the participants behave. Any MP that goes on those marches, I'm afraid, is basically backing very dangerous ideology, at the very least.
I don't think they're hate marches. I think in any demonstration, for instance, whether it's the anti-lockdown demonstrations or the pro-Palestine marches, you're going to get some people who behave very poorly. The majority of the people
on the
who
platform,
go
saying the most atrocious things.
But the vast majority, to clarify, I think Hamas is a terrorist organisation. I am very much, I believe Israel's right to exist, but they are not universally hate marches.
All right, I'm just, yeah, fine. I think it's something that's really worth noting is watch this space, which is going to be about independent candidates on a pro-Palestine ticket standing against a variety of different Labour MPs. I think that is a good chance that's going to have a big impact to the next election. But someone who also wants to have a big impact to the next election is former UK leader Richard Tice. He's going to be licking his lips now at this latest Tory implosion. He wants Lee Anderson to join his party, apparently. We'll hear from Richard very, very soon. But next, remember this England football legend? Absolutely. The World Cup winner Nobby Stiles, famous for his toothless jig in 1966. A few years ago, Nobby sadly died, aged 78, with advanced dementia. And in an exclusive interview next, I'm joined by his son, who's leading a lawsuit against the FA over brain injuries allegedly suffered during his dad's career. That's not to be missed. This is Patrick Christys tonight. It's only on GB News.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 till 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Now, Nobby Stiles was the Manchester United and England footballing legend who won the World Cup in 1966. Charmed the nation with his post-match dance on the Wembley pitch, holding the World Cup trophy in one hand and his false teeth in the other. But when he passed away in 2020, Nobby became the 5th member of the Golden Boys from the 1966 World Cup to die, having suffered from dementia. Scientific evidence suggests that repetitive blows to the head during contact sports like football can cause significant damage to the brain. And Nobby's family are now taking legal action against the Football Association for alleged negligence over brain injuries. I'm joined now by Nobby's son, John Stiles. John, look, thank you very much. It's great to have you on the show. Why are you taking the FA to court?
Quite simply, Patrick, it's because after 3 years of campaigning after my dad died to get help for players who are suffering with CTE, dementia, nothing's happened. So we've got to do something. It's too late for my dad. Just to fill you in, the reason why we're so vehement about it is because when Dad died, we donated his brain. And his brain was riddled with a disease called chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE. That can only be caused by head impacts. So we know that heading the ball killed my father. Nobody seems to know about this disease that killed my father, and I'm convinced that hundreds, if not thousands, of players have died and are going to die because of it, and nothing is being done about it. And nothing is being done to help the families who are suffering from the same disease my father had, with care home costs, all the rest of it. There's very little help that's being given to them, and that's why we want to shake things up and we want to get football to take care of this problem, because it's a real problem.
I mean, is the FA essentially trying to wash their hands of any responsibility here at the moment?
Well, I can't go into details about the case, to be honest with you, Patrick, but if you want me to answer it overall with regards to football, then absolutely yes. I believe that football is washing its hands of it. It knows about it. Jeff Astl's coroner said 20 years ago that heading the ball killed him. And then in 2013, they found out that Jeff had CTE, the same as my father. This is a real problem. Even doctors and coroners don't know to look for this disease. Now, obviously, there's other damage, frontal lobe damage, but specifically, this is what killed my father. And we need to get something done to sort this out. It's a scandal. It's an absolute scandal.
Look, what can happen? I mean this with absolute respect, but obviously, sadly, it's too late for your dad, right? And it's too late for a lot of people from that era, right? So, realistically, what can happen now?
Well, what I want to see, Patrick, is a fund, a proper fund, not like the one that's been created recently. You see, in any other industry, Patrick, if you had workers dying of an injury from the job that they were doing, you would have a union protecting them. But the footballers don't have a union that functions properly. It doesn't look after its members. It doesn't look after its ex-players. They're not being looked after because they've got to pay for healthcare funds and all the rest of it. So I want a fund. We want a fund, created a proper fund that will take care of all the players who get dementia from heading the ball, to take care of the healthcare costs. And we want the players to be informed, the current players. I mean, I got kicked out of Doncaster Rovers, my ex-club, for handing out leaflets to players. And I went outside and one of the cars came along and one of the lads opened the window, gave a leaflet. Then the last car came and said, "Sorry, mate, they've just rung and said we can't talk to you." So I've been trying to get the play. I bet Harry Kane doesn't know about it. I bet Kyle Walker doesn't know about it. I bet Lucy Bronze doesn't know what CTE is. And this is a disgrace. They should know, and then they can make their own informed decision. I'm not saying take it heading out of football, but they should be able to. Did you know about CTE, Patrick, before I've just mentioned?
Not really, no.
Well, this is what I'm saying, and this is something to do with the national game. Heading the ball, what happens, Patrick, is you head the ball, a tau protein breaks off. If you don't have another impact, it settles down. Over the years, the footballers had tens of thousands of balls. The tau protein clumps up, lodges on the brain and destroys it, and that's what killed my father. And that's what we want to tell all the players about, Patrick.
Well, I hope to talk to you again about this as it progresses. Good luck with everything that you're trying to do. That's John Stiles there, Nobby Stiles' son, who is taking the FA to court. I can sense something brewing here, another kind of postmaster-style scandal, an ITV docudrama in the making, I think, but there we go. An FA spokesperson did say, thank you very much, an FA spokesperson did say, we're not able to comment on ongoing legal proceedings. We continue to take a leading role in reviewing and improving the safety of our game. This includes investing in and supporting multiple projects in order to gain a greater understanding of this area. Exactly, so you can also just read the rest of that statement. It's on your screens right there, right now. So, look, I've got loads more coming your way. Has the Prime Minister got it all wrong on the issue of immigration? Is he out of touch with the public mood? Reform UK leader Richard Tice weighs in. He's offered Lee Anderson the chance to join his party. Should he? That's next.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, Alex Burkill here with your latest GB News weather forecast. It is going to be cold tonight, and with that, the risk of some harsh frost, icy patches, and a little bit of further snow. A low pressure system across northern parts of the UK today brought some significant snow here. However, the worst of that is clearing away towards the east, with just some outbreaks of rain, sleet or snow pushing their way southwards across parts of northern central England and Wales as we go through this evening and overnight. Most of this breaking up, though, as it goes. Further north, clearer skies for many, but some snow showers feeding in, particularly to northern parts of Scotland. Under those clear skies, temperatures plummeting. Some places could fall into negative double figures, so a widespread harsh frost and some icy patches to watch out for. As we go through Wednesday, there is a system towards the south of us. This may bring a bit of rain, perhaps some sleet or snow to immediate southern counties, but for most of us, it is actually going to stay largely dry. Plenty of winter sunshine on offer tomorrow, but there will be some snow showers feeding down on a brisk northerly wind, mainly affecting northern Scotland. Despite the sunshine, though, it is going to feel cold. Temperatures generally only getting a few degrees above freezing. More fine, sunny weather to come as we go through Thursday, but we stick with that brisk northerly wind, so more snow showers across northern parts of Scotland, perhaps Northern Ireland, and some western and eastern coastal parts could see some wintry showers for a time. Most inland areas, though, staying dry and fine, with more fine weather to come as we go through Friday, but turning wet, windier and milder by the weekend.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 PM for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 PM and repeated every morning at 5 AM. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 PM every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 PM, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys tonight, 9 to 11 PM, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces, scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
This is Patrick Christys Tonight.
I can't be in a position to vote for something which I don't believe in. I've not done it for Lee Anderson. I've done it for the residents of Ashfield.
Lee Anderson, gone. Brendan Clark-Smith, gone. The red wall, crumbling. Does anyone trust Rishi Sunak on immigration? Is he way out of touch with the public mood? We'll discuss it all on a monumental night for the Prime Minister. Plus, Reform UK leader Richard Tice wasted no time in telling Lee to defect. This is how he responded.
The Conservative Party is the best party moving forward to get us out of this mess. So it's very kind of Richard.
Tice tells Lee to roll the dice. That's next. Meanwhile, do you get value for money on your council tax?
Shambles, actually. You know, we've got potholes everywhere. I just can't believe the council are 100 million in debt.
Yeah, of course you don't. Why is every single council going bust? Plus, there's exclusive reporting from Lady Colin Campbell on the Lilibut Gate scandal. Did the Sussexes have the late Queen's blessing to give their child her name? And why are there calls for the Archbishop of Woke, the father of virtue signalling, Justin Welby, to resign? I'll reveal all in due course, and joining me on the sofa for a raucous night of political debate is Suzanne Evans, Conservative MP and former Government Minister Ranil Wardner, and Rebecca Reid as well. Look, the Tories are in turmoil again. Are you ready, Britain? Here we go. Should Lee Anderson defect to Reform UK? Richard Tice makes his pitch to the Red Wall Rottweiler right after your news. We're Polly.
Patrick, thank you. Good evening. Parliamentary amendments tabled to strengthen the government's Rwanda bill were both defeated in the Commons tonight. Our political editor, Christopher Hope, explains.
A difficult night then for the PM, Rishi Sunak, and his Rwanda plan, with 60 Tory MPs, 2 independents and 8 DUP MPs voting for amendments to try and strengthen his plan. They weren't impressed by the remarks from the Prime Minister to GB News on Monday, making clear he would overrule European judges which try and frustrate the will of the UK government in sending illegally arrived migrants who arrive here by boat back to Rwanda. There's been some casualties too. We've seen the resignations of both Lee Anderson and Brendan Clark-Smith, 2 deputy chairmen of the Tory party, and later tonight, the resignation of Jane Stevenson, a parliamentary private secretary to Kevin Badenoch. So, food for thought overnight for government whips and for Mr Sunak and his team as we go into a key day tomorrow when more amendments are voted on, but crucially, if the bill remains unamended, there'll be a third reading tomorrow night, and that vote could be lost unless whips and the PM, maybe himself personally, can persuade some of those 60 or so Tory MPs not to vote the bill down on Wednesday night.
Christopher Hope. Well, in other news today, a Fujitsu boss accused the Post Office of knowing about the bugs and errors in the Horizon IT system. The Business and Trade Committee heard from key figures involved in the Post Office scandal, including Fujitsu executive Paul Patterson, who apologised and admitted that his company had a moral obligation to contribute towards compensating victims. The wrongly accused former postmaster and leader of the Sub-Postmasters Alliance, Alan Bates, blamed red tape for delays to compensation payments. A people smuggler has been jailed for trying to bring a migrant into the UK by cramming her into the dashboard of his car. If you're watching on TV, take a look at this extraordinary image of a Vietnamese woman wedged inside a tiny custom-built hideaway behind the man's glove box. Border Force officers searching the vehicle and noticing the carpet on the passenger side was slightly out of place. 33-year-old Joseph Balog from Slovakia was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison for assisting unlawful immigration at Canterbury Crown Court today. Very cold outside. In fact, the coldest January night in 14 years hitting the UK tonight, according to the Met Office. Temperatures in Scotland reaching as low as minus 15 degrees Celsius. More than 100 schools closed there today. And the Met Office issuing yellow weather warnings for snow and ice, including for northern England and parts of Wales. That remains in place until midnight. And the Met Office is saying a cold plunge of Arctic air has moved south across the whole country over the last few days, making it 5 to 6 degrees lower than usual for this time of year. And the government's confirmed thousands of households in England and Wales are now eligible for cold weather payments. You're with GB News across the UK on TV, in your car, on digital radio and on your smart speaker. This is Britain's News Channel.
The big noise today is all about the Rwanda plan. Deputy Tory Chairman Lee Anderson and Brendan Clark-Smith gone. They quit. In reality, they were forced out because they wanted to toughen up the Rwanda bill. This was Lee yesterday.
This is not a rebellion, Patrick. This is about making sure that the bill is beefed up a little bit. Look, Brendan and I both agree with pretty much 90% of this Rwanda bill. We just feel that there's a few areas in the bill that could be strengthened to make sure that it's watertight. But this is not about us rebelling. It's about us saying, you know what, the bill, most of it is satisfactory. We just need to beef it up a little bit to close all the loopholes and make sure that people can't come over here and break into our country.
Well, this was him today.
I can't be in a position to vote for something which I don't believe in. I've not done it for Lee Anderson. I've done it for the residents of Ashfield. 55.5% of the residents in Ashfield, when asked by a Telegraph poll, said they want to see the immediate deportation or removal of illegal migrants. I've done it for them, not for Lee Anderson.
Right, well, I mean, it does appear like that's the red wall gone then. I mean, take a look at this picture. All right, it's caption competition time, everybody. I spoke to one source today that genuinely thought that Rishi Sunak might stand aside for David Cameron. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? We've got the former Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick, telling me that behind the scenes the government lawyers cannot and will not go against foreign courts or international law. Then you've got Rishi Sunak saying this.
Look, I've been very clear, I won't let a foreign court stop us from getting flights off and this deterrent working. Now, there's a clause in the bill that says very specifically that it is for ministers to decide whether to comply with these Rule 39 rulings, as they're called. I would not have put that clause in the bill if I was not prepared to use it.
Yeah, but is he prepared to use it? I just don't think he is. And then today MPs voted against an amendment that would mean international law couldn't stop us sending people to Rwanda. But you just couldn't make all this up. We now have a situation where if all the people who voted for one of the amendments tonight hold their nerve tomorrow, then Rishi's Rwanda plan will be voted down. That is essentially a vote of no confidence, and goodness knows what happens then. Well, before I get the reaction from my panel, let's cross to Reform UK leader Richard Tice, who joins me now. Richard, thank you very much. Richard, you wasted no time in telling Lee Anderson to go and join your party after he resigned. Well, I mean, can I just say, here's how he responded when our political editor Christopher Hope asked him about your proposition.
The Conservative Party gave me a home when I was politically homeless. They backed me, they financially backed me, they wrapped their arms around me. I still think the Conservative Party is the best party moving forward to get us out of this mess. So it's very kind of Richard. We've had a few, few dingoes over the past few weeks, a few arguments. But he's a good man. He's a great man. I like him. I class him as a friend. But I think, the best way forward to solve this problem is a strong Conservative Party with strong MPs like myself.
Well, this time last week, Richard, I was looking to rent out a pub car park so you and Lee Anderson could have a scrap in it, but now you want him in your party, do you?
Listen, well, I'm pleased to say, as I said to Chris Hope a bit earlier, which invited that question, that obviously we have a very strict vetting process in Reform UK, but both Lee Anderson and Brendan, they passed that strict vetting process, so that's past first base. Look, I was up in Cumbria last night and Skipton the night before campaigning, and I'm telling you that up and down the country, the people want the boat stopped, but they have no confidence that this Rwanda plan in any shape or form, firstly, they don't think it'll pass the House of Parliament, and even if it did, they don't think that anybody is going to Rwanda. This is a whole load of noise, Frank Patrick. It'll make no difference. Lee has there, in that interview, has inferred, and it'll be very interesting to see what Lee does, and he is a good man. His heart's absolutely in the right place. he said there he couldn't vote for something he didn't believe in. Well, let's see what happens tomorrow night. Because of those 60 Tory MPs who voted for the amendment this evening, how many of them will actually go through the polling booths tomorrow night and vote for Rishi Sunak's bill? And I suspect the answer will be a great number of them, because tomorrow night it's a confidence vote. And frankly, if the government lose tomorrow night, it's the end of this government. So they'll all bottle it at the last minute in order to protect their own skins and to protect the Prime Minister. But look, the door's open, they know my number, and frankly, we're the only home, if anybody is serious about wanting to stop the votes, with the only policy that will work, which is to pick up and take back. It's a version of what we know works because it worked in Australia, and we're legally entitled to do it.
So just to confirm, anyone who is desperate to vote against this Rwanda bill tomorrow, who is a Conservative MP, would you take them in Reform UK?
Well, obviously, Patrick, as I said, they've got to pass our vetting process, and there's a number of people, excellent people, who clearly would do that. And there's no greater sign of your commitment and your determination actually to defend our borders, to protect British citizens, and wanting to stop the votes by saying that the Tory party are not going to do it because they're dominated by left-leaning Social Democrats, the One Nation bunch that Sunak is frankly a member of himself and terrified of, and they will win the day. And this is going nowhere, absolutely nowhere. All the noise, all the kerfuffle, it's going nowhere. No one's going to Rwanda except Home Secretaries and hundreds of millions of our cash.
I think there are some parallels, though, aren't there, between whether or not the Conservatives essentially vote for no confidence in Rishi Sunak tomorrow, possibly leading to a snap election, almost definitely leading to a Labour government, or whether or not people choose to give their vote to Reform UK at the next election. Arguably, it leads to the same situation, doesn't it, which is a Labour government.
No, what a vote for Reform UK does is to say that actually we don't want socialism. We don't want the two main parties and their versions of high taxes, high wasteful government spending, mass immigration, pro-net zero. It's all a catastrophe for the country. And I want people to vote for what they believe in, not, Patrick, what you try to infer is you've got to vote against what you're afraid of. That's a terrible way to run a democracy. We've got to ban it and scrap it and get proportional representation. But I said, the more millions of people who vote for reform, the more we will get reform in due course. This is not a one-election project, Patrick. This is a medium-term, serious project to reform our country. And frankly, the Tories should rename themselves the Social Democrats or the Con-Socialist Party. And they don't own the philosophy of conservatism. And frankly, they don't practice it either. And it's about time that they were punished for it.
All right, look, Richard, thank you very, very much. That is Richard Tice there, the leader of Reform UK, who earlier on offered Lee Anderson the opportunity to go and join the party. Obviously, as he was very clear on there, Lee Anderson does pass the strict vetting process. To respond to this now, joining again my political commentator, Suzanne Evans, former Environment Secretary, Ranald Jar Warner MP, author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Look, Ranald, do you think Lee Anderson should just join Reform UK? I mean, clearly, a load of your colleagues there are actually banging in favour of what Richard Tice is putting across instead of stopping the votes now.
Well, the short answer is no. He shouldn't join Reform UK. He should stay with the Conservative Party as he set out, because the Conservative Party is the party that can defeat Labour, that can stop the socialism that Richard Tice is right to call out. We don't want that socialism from the Labour Party to govern this country, and we know that the people who are in the Labour Party right now, including Sir Keir Starmer, wanted to put Corbyn in Downing Street in the first place. So no, he shouldn't join Reform. But the real point is that actually there is a plan, at least from the Conservative Party, which everyone can agree, regardless where you're coming at it from in the Conservative Party, which is everyone wants Rwanda flights to take off, and that's what we've got to focus on right now.
You, this is a question, this is genuinely a question. Why is the Rwanda plan better than what he detailed about just tow them back?
Well, in the Australian example that he also talked about, one of the key things they had was offshore processing. And so that is what this is. This does provide that deterrent, which was the biggest deterrent in the Australian scheme.
But is it not, can they not just literally, like, safely take people back to France, just like that over and over again?
I'm not going to, I was about to use a word, I'm not going to say something that I'm not qualified to speak on, because I've not been at the Home Office. But what I do know is that that the Rwanda scheme works on the same principle that the Australian scheme did, which had some other elements, yes, but a core part of it was offshore processing in Papua New Guinea, and that's what this does.
Suzanne, do you think there is a case to say that if a lot of these Rwanda rebels had integrity, we actually would be having a no-confidence vote in Rishi Sunak?
Yeah, I think there is absolutely a case for saying that. As I said earlier, I find it incredible that, you know, you'll vote against the government one night and then change your mind and vote for them the next night. And I think people watching will think, well, where is their conviction? Are they just not hypocrites?
And just to clarify on this, because it has been a fast-moving picture today, and it is genuinely, with the different amendments and everything, it is quite difficult to keep up with exactly what's going on. But we could very well have the, I think, quite farcical situation where people voted for amendments today, have very vocally voiced their genuine belief that this Rwanda plan is not going to work and can't work, but will vote for it tomorrow anyway.
That's probably what's going to happen, because Richard Tice said he's absolutely right. The Conservatives will regroup, they will put party first, they won't want a confidence vote in Rishi Sunak because, that's just absolutely farcical.
But here's the thing. So if you believe that the Rwanda flights should take off, that's a pretty clear yes or no. Most of the Conservative Party, I'd contend, in fact, all the Conservative Party would say yes. Some people have an idea that they think it will take off and it will be easier to do it if they go X, Y, Z, but they still believe that they should take off, and that's what this piece of law will do, if the House of Lords, of course, agree to it. And that's a really important thing that no one's talking about yet, because we're focused on the Commons. The, Tony's cronies, the lefty Liberals that are in the House of Lords, they're going to block this. They're going to block this outright. And then there's a big call for the House of Commons as a whole. Do we assert the preeminence?
Does this not just show, Rebecca, how out of touch our political class is, with the possible exception of yourself, of course, with the British public? 9 out of 10 constituencies want to see a reduction in legal immigration. By the way, a majority of people underestimated the amount of net migration to the UK by 10 times, which is staggering. They still wanted to reduce that. Then we've got the illegal immigration side of it. Meanwhile, we've got a load of people in Parliament there pontificating over the best way to get some flights off the ground. And the House of Lords is possibly going to block all of this anyway.
Yeah, I mean, 39% of people who were asked by YouGov, and it was like a 3,500 person study in November 2023, said scrap Rwanda. They said, yes, we want immigration to be changed, but they didn't want Rwanda to be the plan. I believe that we need reform in immigration, and I didn't necessarily believe that this time last year or the year before. I have come to believe that. I just don't think Rwanda is a sensible plan. I think when something doesn't work, there's a reason that it keeps not working, and this is a really complicated, I would say silly way of doing it, and I think really we could do it simpler, cleaner, cheaper.
Are you now pro-turning boats back?
Only because I think the human trafficking element of it is not being handled properly, and people are really in danger. People are dying and making profit from it. I still believe, absolutely, that refugees should be able to come here, that anybody from somewhere like Afghanistan or Ukraine, absolutely. But I do understand the economic migration.
As far as I can see, look, tomorrow is going to be absolutely electric, especially right here on this show, because we're going to be picking the bones out of what on earth is going to happen in the House of Commons. It could be some kind of pseudo-no-confidence vote in Rishi Sunak. It could lead to a snap general election. It could lead to absolutely anything. Look, it fundamentally comes down to me as to whether or not Rishi Sunak is prepared to ignore calls from lawyers internally and actually say, well, I don't care about annoying judges in Strasbourg. If he's got the bottle for that, I'm not sure he does, but we're going to have to move on for now. Coming up, as his personal support for former Post Office Chief Paula Venables becoming the Bishop of London is uncovered, should the Archbishop of Canterbury now resign? Tonight's panel thrash that out in my press pack, but also next, as the late Queen's anger at the Sussexes choosing to name their daughter Lilibet is revealed in an explosive new bug. Did Harry and Meghan lie to the world when they claimed to have her approval? And is there actually serious danger now of Prince Harry writing another so-called tell-all book? I know, another one. Our royal masterminds, Lady Colin Campbell and Phil Dampier, they beam in live to tackle that for us, plus the latest backlash brewing against Prince Harry in the States. Their unrivalled royal insight is coming your way next. You will not want to miss it. It's Patrick Christys tonight, only on GBNews.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show.
Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else.
We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride.
Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse.
It's news, but it's this close to entertainment.
Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
This is Patrick Christys Tonight only on GB News. Tonight's panel of pundits return to run through the first of tomorrow's front pages very, very soon. But first, we welcome Lady Colin Campbell and Phil Dampier for tonight's Royal Dispatch. An explosive new biography has revealed that the late Queen was as angry as staff had ever seen her after Harry and Meghan claimed that she had supported their decision to name their daughter Lilibet. So Queen Elizabeth II was affectionately known as Lilibet by a select handful of her closest friends and family, most notably her husband Prince Philip, before the Sussexes chose to name for their second-born child back in 2021. But in Robert Hardman's new biography, Charles III, New King, New Court, Palace insiders unveil how the Queen was left stunned by the suggestion that she had been supportive of this decision. Instead, described as angry, she's reported to have told staff, "I don't own the palaces, I don't own the paintings, the only thing I own is my name, and now they've taken that." Well, Lady C, you were told at the time that the Queen was furious over the Sussexes' decision to name their daughter Lilibet, weren't you? I mean, do you think that Harry and Meghan lied when they said that she'd been supportive?
Well, I think they had to have lied because, as I said at the time, my information was that Harry asked her if he could name his daughter after her, and she thought the name was going to be Elizabeth. And it came as a great shock to her to discover that not only had he gone behind her back and named the child Lilibet, but that he had registered the birth in such a way that it was not possible for the name to be changed. So she had to swallow it, so to speak.
OK. Phil, what do you make of this? I mean, is it actually a massive deal? Is it not, you know, quite cute, I suppose, they've named it after me? Have they deliberately mugged the Queen off here? What do you make of it?
Yeah, good evening, Patrick. I just think it's very, very sad to learn, isn't it, that in the final few months of her life, this amazing woman, this incredible reign she had, that she was undergoing this heartache to the extent where she became so angry that aides say they'd never seen her angrier. I think Lady C is probably right. I think he probably tricked her. He said that he asked could he call her after her, and she probably thought that meant it was Elizabeth. And then by the time she found out it was Lilibet, it was all too late, and it was a fait accompli. But I see that our old friend Omid Scobie's got in on the act today. He tweeted earlier that these revelations about the Queen weren't showing her in a very good light. I mean, only he could twist that round to that extent.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that Omid Scobie is in any way qualified to pass judgment on arguably the greatest ever person that this country has ever produced is ridiculous. But further revelations in Hardman's book include the palace fears that Prince Harry will write a sequel to Spare. Lady C, I'll get your views on this. Apparently bits about his wedding were not covered in the original publication. Is this true? Is anyone? I mean, surely he can't just keep, you know, trotting out this rubbish, can he?
Well, I mean, he can do anything he wants. It's a free country, and so is America. But the fact of the matter is, I have been told that Meghan is the one who is going to be writing a book, and that amid scabies set up the situation for her to name the King and the Princess of Wales, and that the book isn't going to be written by Harry, it's going to be written by Meghan. But the fact of the matter is, in my opinion, everybody's so turned off by them and their constant antics and lies that I don't think people are going to buy the book, in much the same way that nobody has bought Endgame. I mean, it's tanked in the most appalling way. And I suspect any book she writes is going to tank as well. And if it doesn't, her reputation is certainly going to tank with it.
Yeah, OK. Phil, what do you think about this idea of there being a sequel to Spare?
Well, we've had, as Lady C says, we've had Finding Freedom, haven't we? We've had Endgame, which were both written by Scobie, and we've also had Spare. Now, he definitely left quite a few chunks out of Spare, things that he could talk about, and there's whole chunks of things that he hasn't yet referred to. But I think Lady C's right. It might well be done through Meghan, so that might be the way that they do it. You know, but whichever way you look at it, this is something that's been hanging over the royal family and is probably one of the main barriers to any kind of reconciliation, because the King and William and Kate will just be worried that anything they say, any communications, any long-distance phone calls, will end up in a new book. That is the big problem. They just don't trust him.
Well, we actually did reach out to Archwell for comment on that Lilibet story you're hearing about. They've failed to respond. But over in the States, Prince Harry is facing a backlash from US pilots over plans to induct him as a living legend of aviation, which is remarkable, isn't it? Harry will be honoured for his, quote, significant contribution to aviation and aerospace at a glitzy Hollywood ceremony hosted by John Travolta, celebrating his time flying military aircraft in Afghanistan. But a petition for Harry to hand back the award has so far gained more than 11,000 signatures, many describing his inclusion as a joke. Phil, I'll start with you on this. Should the Duke hand back the award out of respect for genuine military heroes?
Of course, he should. If he's got any decency, he should hold it back. I mean, hand it back. I mean, the idea that he should be put in the same category as people like Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin and Top Gun people is ridiculous, you know. And the fact is that when he was in the armed forces, he always said that one of the big things he liked about it was the fact that he was treated as a normal person. So, yeah, you know, you can't take it away from him. He put his life on the line. He did his service, but it was no different from a lot of other people, and they're not being recognised. So why should he?
All right, and finally, Lady C, just to you on that. I mean, what do you think of this Prince Harry, you know, lifetime aviation award? I mean, how's this even happened? You know?
Well, it's a paid-for award. He, you know, it's the Kitty Hawk Flight Club or whatever it's called, and he has to pay $30,000 for it, and he then gets a table and he gets an award, and you know, it's not exactly a weighty matter. And it's farcical as well, because, I mean, the only thing that Harry has flown on his own, because remember, he was a gunner. He wasn't a pilot. He was a gunner, which means that he wasn't actually flying the helicopter. He was taking care of the gun. So, and the only thing that has been flying high is his ability to speak, shall we say, to invent facts.
OK. We've done a lot of reaching out to Archwell this evening, but we also reached out to Archwell about whether or not this award was paid for. They categorically deny it, but, you know, that's where we are. Thank you very much, both of you. That's Lady Colin Campbell and Phil Dampier, this evening's Royal Masterminds. Now, coming up, the Archbishop of Woke, Justin Welby, is facing calls to quit over claims that he backed the disgraced former Post Office chief Paula Venables to be Bishop of London. Should he hang up the dog collar? We will get stuck into that, but next, we bring you the liveliest paper review on British telly, as tonight's panel of expert pundits run through the first of tomorrow's front pages. The Rwanda rebellion is sure to be splattered across just about all of them, and we've got the inside scoop on every single aspect of it. It's Patrick Christys tonight. It's only on GB News.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys tonight is the week's biggest show.
Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else.
We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride.
Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse.
It's news, but it's this close to entertainment.
Patrick Christys tonight, 9 till 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. This is Patrick Christys tonight, and it's only on GB News. Now it's time to bring you tomorrow's news tonight in the liveliest paper review you will get anywhere on telly. The very first front pages have just been delivered for my press pack. Oh, go with the Independent there. PM rocks by shock resignations over his Rwanda migrant bill. Double blow to Sunak's authority. Sorry, it's not shock resignations. He gave them an ultimatum, which is, we'll sack you or you quit. And they quit, didn't they, anyway? Trump wins Iowa as well. Next, we've got the Metro. I'm just going to read it out. All right, The Guardian. PM faces revolt on Rwanda, plans a senior Tories quit. Gaza facing famine as food crisis deepens as well. Quite a lot here about Fujitsu saying that it should pay redress to victims. The technology firm Fujitsu admitted yesterday for the first time that it should pay redress to victims of the post office scandal as well. I'm going to read the Metro out here. Fujitsu's boss, we will pay up. Post office Horizon scandal. That is just, rumbling on big time. The boss of the IT giant did basically admit that they knew there were problems with the system, and yet they still proceeded with prosecutions. But the story that I'm going to zone in on tonight is in the Telegraph. It's not this one, though. 60 Tories turn on PM in Rwanda rebellion, yet we know about that. We've been talking about that a lot. It's this one at the bottom here. Strictest head teacher in High Court for banning Muslim prayer. So, Britain's strictest head teacher is in a row with Muslim pupils over a decision to impose a prayer ban. The Michaela Community School in Brent, North West London, which is run by Catherine Birbalsingh, the government's former social mobility czar, is now facing a High Court challenge from a Muslim pupil over its prayer policy. The school has faced an online campaign over its approach to religion, as well as threats of violence, abuse and false allegations of Islamophobia. Suzanne, I'll start with you on this. This is quite a remarkable turn of events. So it appears that they've banned the Muslim prayer in this school.
It's quite interesting. Obviously, this has just landed, so I'm trying to make head or tail of it. And it seems to me that what's happening is that there seems to have been almost the prayer has been politicised, I think, by some students. That seems to be the reason why the ban was imposed. And we've certainly seen this among adults, I think. And clearly, if you're praying at certain times in the day and disrupting the school day, that appears to be why the ban's been brought in. I would not want to be the judge in this one, because you've obviously got the school has a right to run the school as it sees fit and in the best interest of all its pupils, not just a majority. But then, of course, you've got freedom of religion issues as well. So I look forward to hearing a bit more about this. I think this one's going to be very interesting.
Interesting that and they say this quite openly, presumably with no hint of irony whatsoever. A source close to Suella Braverman, the former Home Secretary, told The Telegraph, who could this be? Told The Telegraph, it is deeply concerning that the school is being taken to court over what is clearly legitimate policy. It's clearly being weaponised, which is a brilliant school doing a brilliant job for its pupils with a fantastic headmistress. Should a school, Ranil, be able to clamp down on the Muslim prayer?
Well, a school should be able to set its policies. A head teacher should be able to set that school's policy. I think Suella was actually a governor once upon a time of this school, if I remember rightly, so she knows it well.
Ben Ranil?
And I haven't. I've been invited. but the important thing is that you get people from all sorts of backgrounds, some of the most deprived communities in London, choosing this school. People have the choice to go to a great school, and that's thanks to some good leadership, some great teachers, and a strict approach to education. And parents, of course, have the choice to choose somewhere else. And it's up to the parents of these children to choose a school that agrees with their own ethos. And if the policies in one school aren't for them, then that's fine. But they can go somewhere else.
I don't actually know whether you've tried to get your child into a school in London recently, but you don't get a lot of choice. In fact, you get almost no choice because they are so oversubscribed. Now, this is a popular school.
The good ones.
All of them. Some of the rubbish ones in my house are oversubscribed. The point with this school, it's quite a famous one, is that the way that they've managed to get decent results is by being incredibly strict, like unbelievably strict. My thing is, it's held up as a success by a lot of Tories. It's not successful if you can only get these results by not allowing children to pray. And what the lawyer for this child wants is for children to be allowed to pray for 5 minutes at lunchtime. So that's their time. We're not talking about getting out double maths to go and have a quick Hail Mary, and on dates when faith rules require it. Now, it's not reasonable to say, and I went to Catholic school I went to Catholic boarding school where people who were Jewish would be able to observe Jewish high holidays. You have to accept it, and the only way you can get good behaviour is by crushing people into the ground and not letting them have religious freedoms. You're not doing a good job.
But isn't the point here that parents do have a choice as well?
They don't really.
No, but
they should, but they don't really.
They do. Children here are travelling miles to go to that school. They're choosing not to go to their local school. There's been an active choice from their parents, and parents can choose somewhere else. Now, look, I might happen to agree with you on religious freedom, but that's a different matter from allowing a school to determine its own policies.
I think in terms of they have some quite mad policies that I would never want for my child, like you can get detention for looking out the window. Now, that is a personal choice. If you think your child needs that kind of behaviour management, I think you should have started your parenting a lot earlier in life, but that's your choice. But this is about this is about an individual person's religion.
But the principle's the same, which is the school can set its policy.
But it's for you. But do you not think, particularly when these children are 14, 15 years old, when your relationship with your God is your choice, you don't get a choice in what school you go to.
But that's not the principle at stake here. The principle at stake is, should a school be able to set its policy?
So I'm just going to read some more out of this article now. About 30 students began praying in the school's, quote, wet and dirty yard in March last year, using blazers to kneel as they were not permitted to bring in prayer mats.
Lawyers... rebellion goes, it's not really fags around the back of the bike sheds, is it?
No.
We're so badass, we're going to pray.
But it is a kind of rebellion, though,
yes,
isn't it?
But that's teenagers, they should rebel. That's the point of being young. I love that they're doing it. I think it's a bit lame as rebellion goes, but I love that they've got a cause.
Yeah, OK, but you can't let teenagers get away with every rebel that has a cause.
No, I mean, there is another side to this, which is glass bottles were thrown over the school railings and a brick was put through one of the teachers' windows, leaving staff quite fearing for their lives as a result of clamping down on prayer. Police had to respond to claims of bombs being placed at the school. I mean, this isn't normal.
No, that's not normal.
That's not normal.
But that's very different from a group of children wanting to pray. That is adults, I think, almost certainly.
Yeah, but this is just happening all the time now, isn't it? Whenever it happens all the time. The Batley Grammar School incident, you know, absolute shocker. That teacher there is still in protective custody or whatever you want to call it. You know, it just seems that whenever you know, the guards... I turned up at some protest outside of a school... which was about the Palestine. There was a supposedly Palestinian child there who wasn't allowed to wear a flag, and adults mob up outside. And you know, why are adults so touchy about the Muslim faith?
Of course, the whole Trojan horse school issue, when you know some Muslim governors tried to take over the running of the school.
Yeah, and there is also a continued issue
as well.
There's a continued issue with the opposition to sex education being taught in schools, which is essential and must be taught. So I'm not suggesting for a second that this is not an issue, but in this specific one, the right to pray, I think, is another human right technically by children, but it is a right.
You start with one fundamental right and everybody agrees, and then suddenly the wedge gets thicker and thicker and other things come in. So they want to change to the school uniform policy, perhaps. They want to change to the way religious assemblies are run.
But
all this kind of thing. It's like a thin end of the wedge argument.
I see your point, but I think those are very different things. And to me, also, it's telling that there must be other religious people in this school who also must be given the right. Jewish children must be allowed to take off Yom Kippur. Catholics must be able to only eat fish on Fridays. You have to allow for it.
Yeah, that's fine, but taking one day off that's a specific religious holiday is very different from having a major interruption in the school day every day.
OK, all right. Well, look, we've still got quite a bit to cram into the final section of this show because failed London Mayor Sadiq Khan is exposed for wasting millions of pounds of public money on beach parties, drag acts and bicycle ballet. Is this a sinister sign of the spending to come under a Labour government? I'm also going to be talking about why there are now calls for the Archbishop of Woke, Justin Welby, to resign and find out who I crown as tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. But yes, next, tonight's panel, they're about to run through some more of tomorrow's front page and debate whether or not Justin Welby should finally call it a day. I'll see you in a tick.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel. Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on this Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. It's time to return to our paper review. I've got some more front pages right here, hot off the press. Start with the Mirror. Fujitsu knew their faulty system was destroying lives and they went ahead with prosecutions anyway. That's the latest in the sub-postmaster scandal. The Sun. Why did authorities not save tragic toddler? Little boy in the pudsey pyjamas left to starve to death in Britain. A really devastating story, that. A boy of 2 starved to death next to his dad's body after social services missed chances to save him. I mean, grief. The Daily Express. PM's last-ditch plea to rebels come together on Rwanda plan. The Times. Sunak hit by resignations and biggest rebellion yet. It's on moral duty to compensate postmasters is the other story there. So there is a kind of recurrent theme on the vast majority of the front pages tomorrow. I'm joined again by my press pack. We've got political commentator Suzanne Evans, former Environment Secretary Ranil Jayawardena and author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Now, a story that's on the inside of one of the papers tomorrow is the Archbishop of Canterbury is coming under increasing pressure to resign after supporting disgraced former Post Office CEO Paula Venables to become Bishop of London. Reverend Justin Welby personally endorsed Venables after she was shortlisted back in 2017, 2 years after the Post Office halted prosecutions of postmasters. Writing on his personal Facebook, the late Queen Elizabeth's former chaplain, Reverend Canon Jeremy Hazelock, said, "Surely this is the point at which Welby must go." His backing for this woman for an episcopal office shows how completely he fails to understand the nature of that office. Suzanne, I'll start with you. Look, should Welby resign, do you think?
Oh, why not? There are so many reasons Welby should resign, I think. Why not add this one to the list? You know, he closed churches during COVID without a murmur. They weren't even shut during the Great Plague of London. Ridiculous thing to do. He lectures us about immigration. He lectures us about climate change, despite the fact he spent 11 years working in the oil industry. Remember when he basically called Nigel Farage a racist for highlighting how women were being abused by illegal migrants in Cologne one New Year's Eve? I mean, there are so many reasons why the man should go. So,
You'd get him out, you'd biff him. What do you think, Radl? I mean, it's, do you think he should go?
Well, I'm on the parochial church council of my own village church.
Are you?
And I can tell you a load of people think he should be going, but not just for this, but for countless other issues, as Suzanne says. I mean, look, I have sympathy with him because he wasn't in the position to ask all the questions of Paula Venables at that time. But I think some of the decisions he's taken and some of the appointments he's made are really questionable. And Paula Venables really is the person who should be looking very deeply at her own
The Church of England is
position.
sitting on something along the lines of £10 billion worth of reserves, which is remarkable, when you see that local parishes actually are really struggling. And there was even talk as well about local parishes going on strike because they weren't getting pay rises. The Church also is investing in things like arms manufacturers, or the oil and gas industry, despite some of the, I was going to say virtue signalling, but I suppose it is, that he's dished out. So I think, Justin Welby here, expressing his support for a former Post Office boss. I mean, what do you think, Rebecca? Is this the final straw?
I don't think he knew the situation. I think, like everybody else, I'm very aware from a religious family, how disliked he is and how everybody, I think, would like him to go, most people would like him to go. I think this is actually a bit of a thing to hang it on. I'm not sure this is the reason he should go. I think people just don't like him.
But the other thing, though, why hasn't he said anything about this? I've been trying to find public statements he's made about the post office scandal.
It's odd, isn't it?
And to my knowledge, I've not seen anything. I think he's kept stum about it. Insane.
Yeah, anyway, we've just got another little one to fit in for you now, because after Labour-run councils in Nottingham and Birmingham went bust last year, shocking new data has revealed that collectively all UK councils and local authorities are a whopping £122 billion in debt. It comes as local government leaders warn that they've had to increase tax bills and cut services to balance the books. We deployed our intrepid reporter, Will Hollis, to Nottingham to ask locals if they get enough bang for their buck when it comes to their council tax.
Council tax goes up year in, year out, but the Labour-run council keep cutting back on services. They've shut libraries, Sure Start centres.
It's a shambles, actually. You know, we've got potholes everywhere, you know, it's broke my suspension on my car, you know, a lot of the services are not just active, and I just can't believe the council are 100 million in debt.
They just don't do their job, do they? It's not just Nottingham Council, it's all of them. I could do a better job than them.
Ronald, is this just a sign of what life would be like under a Labour government? You know, billions of pounds worth of debt, even more than we've got now.
Yes, and the mismanagement of public funds. I mean, in Warrington, it's extraordinary to look at what they've been doing. They've been putting money into supermarkets in Manchester, solar farms in York, Hull and Cirencester, a BT building in Salford, and a third of a bank they've bought. I mean, it's extraordinary. This is taxpayers' money. It is possible to run a council in a commercial way. It is possible to invest in your own area to grow the economy. That's a good thing. But, I mean, I look at one of my own local councils, Lib Dem-run Hart District Council. They've decided to invest in an office block in the other end of Hampshire. That's not generating economic growth for people locally. That's not what people want.
Yeah, but it's not just Labour, I'm afraid, Ranald. My own council, Shropshire, they bought 3 shopping centres for 51 million. 4 years later, they were worth 12.5. I mean, it was insane. I've been a councillor in the London Borough of Merton. I can tell you just how much money is wasted. It's extraordinary. I remember they wanted to replace all the windows at the Civic Centre. They got a quote for 12 million. I said, that's too much. Funnily enough, they came back with a fresh quote and managed to save them 5 million. You know, nobody asks questions. Councils don't do their jobs either. They don't ask.
Council tax going up and up and up. I think it's pretty uncontroversial because most people don't feel like they're getting bang for their buck with it.
I actually feel like I'm in that rare period of my life where I do get a lot of bang for my buck because I live in Wandsworth, which has the cheapest council tax, and I go to the library all the time because I have a small child. And also there are a lot of nurseries, a lot of young person centres, a lot of health visitation. So I think there is a very brief period in your life where you have a young child and you are fairly youngish. You do get quite a lot out of it, but I'm not sure you get much else either side.
So you will at some point grow out of this current cushy purple patch that you're in now.
If they close down my library, I will kill myself.
Then you've grown out of your immigration stance. You'll grow out of your council stance.
But the library is just so nice.
All right. No, look, we're going to have to rattle through this, OK? But it's time now to reveal today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. Excuse me. So, Suzanne, we'll start with you. Your Greatest Britain.
So my Greatest Britain today is an honorary one. It's Javier Milei, the president of Argentina, because he's going to Davos and he's taken an ordinary economy flight there to shake up the global private jet-setting elite with the message of freedom from socialist ideology, which he says only brings misery to the world.
All right, strong start. Ronald.
Emma Raducanu for her win and a great return.
Yeah, OK. Rebecca.
In the grand tradition of things that people watching really won't care about or understand, the Teletubby baby, the girl whose face was the baby in the sun, has had her own first child.
Aww.
Isn't that nice?
The one... What?
Remember the Teletubbies? The baby with the face. The face and the baby on the Teletubbies.
In the sun. In the sun.
We are the same age.
All right. Look, it's not that, OK? It's not that, OK? Obviously.
Suzanne liked it.
Today's Greatest Britain is honorary Javier Milei for turning up at Davos and trying to stick it to them. Now, we're going to go to Union Jackass, Suzanne.
So, again, it's Sadiq Khan. This time for wasting taxpayers' money on beach parties, vaginal moisturiser adverts, I hope I can say that on late-night telly, isn't it?
Right,
drag acts and a bicycle ballet.
Could you just...
Absolute plonker.
So, OK, fine. Ranil, who's your Union Jack?
His best bud, Mark Drakeford, who has brought in all those 20-mile-per-hour speed limits that Sadiq copied in London, and now he's going to be driving off into the sunset and forgetting about them.
Yeah.
Lee Anderson and Brendan Clark-Smith for bailing out. I just can't do another election. If this helps lead to that, I'll be very cross with both of them.
Can't do another election.
I can't.
All right, OK. Today's Union Jackass is Mark Drakeford. There we go. It's always a toss-up between him and Sadiq, but he's won it this one. It'll probably be Sadiq tomorrow, so there we go. Look, thank you very much, my wonderful panel. I've really enjoyed this evening. Make sure that you keep it GB News, OK, because headliners are up next with a slightly more in-depth look at all of tomorrow's newspaper front pages and what's inside the book as well. I will see you tomorrow. Take it easy.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, Alex Burkill here with your latest GB News weather forecast. It is going to be cold tonight, and with that, the risk of some harsh frost, icy patches, and a little bit of further snow. A low pressure system across northern parts of the UK today brought some significant snow here. However, the worst of that is clearing away towards the east, with just some outbreaks of rain, sleet or snow pushing their way southwards across parts of northern central England and Wales as we go through this evening and overnight. Most of this breaking up, though, as it goes. Further north, clearer skies for many, but some snow showers feeding in, particularly to northern parts of Scotland. Under those clear skies, temperatures plummeting. Some places could fall into negative double figures, so a widespread harsh frost and some icy patches to watch out for. As we go through Wednesday, there is a system towards the south of us. This may bring a bit of rain, perhaps some sleet or snow to immediate southern counties, but for most of us, it is actually going to stay largely dry. Plenty of winter sunshine on offer tomorrow, but there will be some snow showers feeding down on a brisk northerly wind, mainly affecting northern Scotland. Despite the sunshine, though, it is going to feel cold. Temperatures generally only getting a few degrees above freezing. More fine, sunny weather to come as we go through Thursday, but we stick with that brisk northerly wind, so more snow showers across northern parts of Scotland, perhaps Northern Ireland, and some western and eastern coastal parts could see some wintry showers for a time. Most inland areas, though, staying dry and fine, with more fine weather to come as we go through Friday, but turning wet, windier and milder by the weekend.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show.
Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else.
We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride.
Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse.
It's news, but it's this